Are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big.
Trump's economy 2025, is it a boom or is it a bust? And if you can relate to this, I remember the euphoria the stock market experienced, crypto experienced, the day that President Trump got elected. The stock market was on a tear, and I think it heightened out at maybe all-time high at right around the middle of December, just in time for Christmas, right? But now here we are, a couple months into the presidency, and I think reality's starting to hit because I think the president even promised that there's going to be a little bit of pain.
States tumbling after President Trump declined to rule out a recession in an exclusive interview with Fox News' Maria Bartiromo.
At first, but things will get better. And I do trust those words. I don't necessarily like some of the things the president says, nor things the president does, but he does have some pretty rock-solid policies that I think deserve a little bit of a look. Let's go ahead and check these things out today. And by the way, if you've not done so already, I need to feed Charlie, and Charlie loves when you hit the subscribe and like button because it helps people like me take care of dogs like him, so thank you. Let's check out the first story. Wall Street fears that Trump will wreck the soft landing. And a soft landing looks like this. So the financial gurus say for the last year, the U.S. economy policymakers have really worried about trying to establish a soft landing, which means bringing down inflation without a recession. But now a new team of pilots are considering a course that, well, might be one of a little bit of pain and suffering financially for the American people. And of course, that's never a good place to be. But we know the policies so far the president's embracing, and those policies really seem to be ones that are going to have a pretty massive effect throughout the U.S. economy. From the Doge, from tariffs, to interest rates, to the stock market, we see there's a significant amount of disruption. And I'm not sure about you, but it definitely affects people like me. For instance, we drive a older car and we needed to replace the exhaust system. And so I'm talking to the mechanic the other day, and the mechanic said, listen, prices are going to continue to go up. And so the exhaust system you just replaced on your car for $1,700, consider yourself lucky because it's going to get kind of expensive in the not too distant future. But by the way, keep driving that older car because it's not going to be worth it to buy a brand new one. So he had a point, and I appreciated his thoughtful advice. How about you? Are you driving cars longer? Are you using things longer and not necessarily buying brand new of anything? If so, I'm curious what your thoughts are. Let's check out the next story. Well, there's always a second part to the story, and I love when people get really behind a presidential policy. Once again, so in this live presentation, we're talking about President Trump's, tariffs, right? And one of those were a big tariff on steel imports. So now behind the scenes, while everybody on the surface is 100% behind the president, well, now there's people trying to lobby the president and say, hey, can you make exceptions, right? Everybody likes a rule for everybody else, but they don't necessarily like that rule for them. That's kind of human nature, isn't it? But sure enough, there seems to be a rather hard line on steel tariffs, and the idea of allowing people to maybe make out special carve-outs for them is starting to show no signs of change, that the president's taking the hard line, and I think we can appreciate that. If we have straight talk, if we have maybe a hardline approach and we're all on the same page, then I think that builds a ton of credibility for the president, for his administration, and for the American people. That, at the end of the day, when we know that we're all in something together, that's a very, very powerful thing. And I know that it kind of builds unity within the country as opposed to maybe not building up a ton of resentment for other political parties when you're all in something together. But what are your thoughts about that? If you know that we're in this mess together, don't you think that builds maybe some solidarity? And maybe if we're all tightening our belts together, don't you think that that's kind of a powerful message to send? Next story. Another interesting sign is that builders are starting to stockpile all types of building materials. They're swapping out materials to work around tariffs, laying up significant supplies of lumber before these tariffs go into effect. And so we see once again the notion of tariffs, the idea of supply and demand, and stockpiling. It's nothing new. Do you remember back during COVID a few years ago, how people were stockpiling, of all things, toilet paper and paper towels? Well, maybe we're putting the whole thing into on steroids now. We're taking a complete different look at how people are approaching consumer confidence. One of the recurrent themes on Wall Street has been how the consumer is resilient. The consumer has bailed out the economy time and time again. Being able to take home equity loans out on the equity you have in your home, maybe going ahead and using their credit cards and making minimum payments. But it appears as though maybe the consumer is at a point where they are kind of maxed out. And how the consumer has always stepped up in the past and leveraged themselves more fully, well, maybe that day's coming to an end right now. And we might have a couple of years of a more difficult economy. While I do believe the best days of this country are ahead of it, these are things to take into consideration. And while we're taking these things into consideration, I'm curious what you're doing to maybe prepare for, we call it economic winter. I know one of the best things we could do is take care of ourselves. I'm talking about taking care of your health, your mental health, right? We talk about rest, exercise, and diet. And when you're taking care of yourself mentally and physically, you are able to withstand much more of the conditions that are out there. Plus, I wouldn't say less trips to the doctor, but maybe you show up a little bit better in everything you do. And if we are in the habit of showing up better, then no matter who the president is, I think we're in a position to, well, show up as our best. And it's kind of what we're always after, I think. And if you have a couple of basic routines that you do to take care of yourself and withstand some of the economic turmoil, I'd be curious to hear. Me personally, I make sure I'm outside walking Charlie on a regular basis, doing push-ups and doing weightlifting on a regular basis. And then, of course, I encourage all my family members to do the same thing. So with that, thanks for watching. And you know what? If you find some other interest in these videos, I have one that will be great for you to watch, and that would be about the effect of Appalachia, and of course, why Appalachia loves Trump. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.